Welcome back to Newsroom, and in case you are just joining us now, remember you can be part of this discussion. Tweet us at TV47KE. We'll get to sample some of your tweets a little bit later on the show. And if you are watching the show, remember you can be part of it. Call us on the number that appears on your screen. Share with us your thoughts in regards to the topic that we are discussing, which is digital media. Gentlemen, we have talked of the space. We have talked of the information in that space and the revenue in that space. Let's talk of taxation. A joke is told of Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni when he heard of Facebook first and the potential customers it would have had in Uganda. A joke goes as he asked where their offices are. In a digital space where you can work from as remote areas as possible and remotely, how do you tax such a space?
Actually, it's a big debate because if you look at the revenue, those giant companies make, especially the Google and Facebook, and yet they, I think Facebook, Google is in Kenya. They have offices, but they deserve to pay tax because they make a decent income. But the fact that someone is operating online does not mean they shouldn't pay their fair share. Especially for digital publishers, they actually pay taxes. Because you register a company with KRA, so there's that trail. You will have to comply with the laws.
And on the specifics of an influencer, there is someone who has followings because of certain reasons, and they get advertisers, clients to work with them. They have a personal account. You can't tax that personal account. Is it a crafty way of doing business online?
I don't think it's well. You can only do so much and only make so much money without paying taxes, because the way it works is that even brands have processes. Like if you are to work with a big brand, like one of the biggest telcos we have around, for you to get into business with them, you have to get into their supply chain. And for you to get into the supply chain, there are certain things that you need to have. For example, you need to have a company that you're going to be paid through. So
What if the influencer is the working company? They don't need to have a company. It's the name, the following that they have.
Even though they are coming in as a consultant, there are certain things that come with being a consultant. Like there's a withholding tax for working as a consultant. So I don't think you can just get away with it. Probably if you work with individual companies that pay you cash, but these are small companies that will never give you those large sums. But if you're going to work with big companies, then the processes to get into the supply chain are not easy. So somehow there's no way you're going to evade paying taxes. But so if you work with small companies, maybe you can get away with 1 or 2 clients. But for the big clients, if you're going to make serious money that can, grow into something that you do full time, then there's no way that you are going to not pay taxes. Yes.
With the widening of the space, a lot of entrants have equally got into the market. We have new outlets, some upcoming, some already established. Judging by the number of outlets that has entered into the market, is it something worthy to smile about? Off the competitors' gloves, I mean, are more people now accepting to be digitally correct?
Yeah, I think the audience is welcoming new players because when you're bringing something new, something that will enrich their lives, they're happy to have you on board. But to really push and be among like the big boys, the major players, is not easy. It's going to take you time. It's going to need you to produce good quality content, consistency, and then you be different. So it's never too late for anyone to start, but the journey is never easy.
Hilary, on traditional media, we had at a point cults-like names. If it was not, for instance, TV47, then the rest could be questioned. If it wasn't a certain channel, a certain media house, the rest were just the rest. Is that a case also on digital media? That if it is not, for instance, Opera News, then...
It's probably not. It's not as common as it used to be in traditional media. because now you're getting so much information from so many different places. It's hard for you to keep up. So what you probably pay attention to is the quality. So if this quality, I like this content, they always give me quality, they always give me the right news, they are always on time, they're always consistent, then you may not even kind of develop a liking for the brand itself, but you just have a liking for the content. So you find as long as you are constantly getting content, then you really don't care where it's coming from. So, but you have to. I've seen so many other digital companies realize that it just can't be business as usual, and they are trying to step up and also try and give more than is expected. Try and give uniqueness that will now start making people feel like they can identify with you. So they're trying to break news faster than everyone else, so that people can at least know them for something. And when they know you for something, then they can kind of develop a kind of a relationship with you. But it's not as it used to be with the additional that maybe TV47, kuna kitu ingine I can watch.
On the space, how does one make money? We have seen people rush, opening account, creating blogs of a lot of YouTubers, and we credit them for the good and otherwise content that they share. How does one make money on the digital space?
It depends on the specific channel someone has opened. If it's, for example, Google, then you can work with local companies, for example, to sponsor their work on your show, on your videos. But largely, most people make income from ads placed by Google itself on your videos. Because
And Google has some conditions before it places an ad on any of your videos.
Yeah. For example, your content must be good. For example, if you do vulgar content, then they might not do that, and you'll need to meet some qualifications. If it's about, let's say, a blog, still Google can place some ads, and then depending on how many people view, the amount isn't much actually. Depending on how many people are seeing those ads or clicking on them, then Google pays you something. And but when you are doing so well, you've created a niche for yourself, you have an audience, then you can very easily start working with local brands. Once you become, you have like an impact, like you are known for something, then you can have a local company come place an ad on your site, or you do a sponsored piece, the content that looks like native but it's not. You do that, you participate in their campaigns, you do some social media posts. They're trying to be actually as creative as possible to create revenue from online.
Iradi, the same question, what alternatives are there for someone who is just stepping into this field to make some few coins out of it?
If you, for example, for me, if I was to advise anyone who wants to start, I think the first thing is probably make sure that you work on the first two things, work on your quality, work on your consistency. Probably don't go for Google first, because their threshold towards making some revenue is not as open as and dynamic as much. So probably there's all these advertising agencies in the business. They're called ad networks, and there are so many. If you went to Google and just looked for ad networks online, you'll find so many of them, and you can probably approach them as you constantly try and build your traffic. So ad networks can be a good source of revenue. Google, of course, with Google AdSense, which is the biggest one for people who are coming up. Many brands, even small ones, have become more willing to collaborate with different people who have a voice online. So you find initially there's no way a car ad would have advertised that way. Probably they would get a classified on the paper, probably get a small segment on radio, and they'd be happy.
And the preference is changing because the audience equally is changing?
Yes, the preference is just because the audience is equally changing. So you find like a car ad, it's a business that you'd think is not as dynamic now wants to start working with certain influencers to push their brands. And they're not just saying, the influencers not just can come to say, come and buy your car at Abubakar's kayak. No. They are dynamic. They create a whole storyline. You can even find someone has like a 3-series part of videos involving the kayak and how the kayak is doing this. So they create all these kits. So collaborations is also another way that clients can get on board. You can make revenue. Then there's content. If you're writing, collaborate with certain brands to push certain forms of content. There's video. There's so many ways
of making coins.
Online.
Okay. Enoch, we have heard of the phrase, the power of media, for a very long time. And lately, emphasis equally has been on the power of social media, the power of digital media. This, in accordance with what we saw in the Arab Spring and the Sudan revolution that we have had, are people now becoming more politically active on digital media as well, demanding for their rights?
Yeah, actually, because social media, digital media, information is now way more available. By saying that corruption used to happen many years ago, like the 80s, the 90s, but the people who knew about what was happening were way few. Right now, if something is happening, that story will be out there, and then people will, because of the feedback from the audience, people will talk about it. There will be outrage. People will be more informed. They know their taxes are not being used well. So there are consequences for that. They can put pressure on authorities to suspend the suspect, or if it's an elected official, that person stands a less chance of being elected during the next general election. So I'll say more people, way more than we've ever had in the history of the country, are more politically active. They are more politically aware. They know what's happening, and it puts, honestly, leaders on their toes, and it's a good thing.
Ereri, if this platform is as impressive as the two of you have today painted it as, why then would authorities be at the forefront in different countries, not just Kenya, in different countries, to crack on this space?
Well, because of, first of all, regulation. Regulation initially was not very, structured. And because of that, you find like for example, what happened in the US election in 2016. I think that it has been the biggest thing that has, powered this revolution towards. That's why you have now things like GDPR coming up and other forms of regulation that are coming in towards digital media. Because now it has become, if you don't do something about it, all hell will break loose. Because now there's a lot of fake news, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misreporting. And you see, because so many people are on the platforms, it's very hard to manipulate and drive certain narratives. Even it's been said in this country that certain people came and they drove the narrative towards certain people in the election. And if you paid keen interest and paid keen notice, you find that during that time there were certain ads that were popping up on Google and on Facebook, trying to depict certain people in certain ways, and that can be used to drive certain narratives and certain outcomes. And because of that, many authorities have become more aware of the same, and they're trying to push for more regulation of these platforms so that we have a bit of sanity into the whole thing. Also because you need to regulate these things so that people, as you probably you have also seen, rises in depression and all these other mental illnesses have come up because of social media. Because now that whole thing of instant gratification has become such a big issue for most people. So you find someone, the only way they get validity is that they post a photo of themselves.
Judge it by the number of likes or comments they
so
get.
the moment they don't get that, then that becomes a problem.
Which drives us to the question of addiction. People are using digital media, they are on social media, depending on the number of hours they want to be, largely because of addiction as well. What are the effects of social media addiction?
Actually, some research has been done on the impact of, for example, using Facebook a lot or even Instagram, and it's not very good. It has a terrible harm on the health of an individual. Because, look, what happens on Facebook? People post the best version of themselves. Like if you've been to some outing and you want to post some pictures, you are going to look for the best. And then once you post it, you're like, people are going to react. That's like giving you a thumb of approval, like you're good. Instagram, the same thing. We even have filters to make you look even prettier than you actually are. And so when you look at that, and then let's say you have not posted anything today, but you are looking at the news feed of your friends, what they're posting, it's the best version of themselves. Some exaggerated. And then you compare that to yourself, you feel like you are living a miserable life. And the research shows that if you use social media a lot, it's going to have a terrible impact in your health because you're going to have a low opinion of yourself. Your self-esteem is going to go down.
Enoch, as an editor, as someone who publishes content, that very same space is where you equally want these people to be.
The reason why media publications share content on social media is that's where the audience is. You are trying to look for where are these people to read my stories. And if you look at pretty much most sites in Kenya, I think almost all of them, people don't just wake up and they type in the search engine, in the browser, they type your URL to come and read news on your site. No, they either meet your stories on Facebook. There's some channels that they use to reach you. So you have to go with the habits. So you are posting something you think is useful for them on social media. I think that's a good thing because elsewhere, all the other things people are posting there, not very, in terms of psychological health, not very helpful. But if you look at the content we push out, we think it's something that it can help the people.
Either whether it's helpful or not, how much of an influence is the content shared on digital media having on the lives of people?
I think it's having a lot of influence in terms of thinking, in terms of direction, even in terms of policy, where you find, like for example, I think is it last year or a couple of months back, there was a bill in Parliament about regulation of digital media. This is what needs to happen. And that is largely because of the platforms that we have. It's because of digital media that the authorities are seeing that certain things are happening in this instance. And like for example, the DCI wing of it now, you find that they're getting a lot of leads and a lot of information coming in from digital, where they are making arrests purely based on public outcry and what people are saying on digital. They are pushing a lot of their activities and what it is that they are doing to the public on digital. I find the Twitter handle is where they inform and tell everyone that this is our plan, this is what we are doing, this is who we are chasing, this is who we are planning to arrest. And that has become the norm pretty much for every other organization. And you never have thought, I can tell you for free, you never have thought government itself would adopt that line of, doing things.
And more than the line of just sharing information and informing the public, my question was, is this information that is posted on digital platforms having impact on people's life, and more so negative impact in the extreme cases?
Yes, there's negative impact, of course, where I think one of the biggest things, like you were speaking about, is mental health conditions, where there's so much pressure to want to live a certain way, to want to become a certain person, that most people are not able to cope with that, and they end up taking their lives because they don't feel like they are achieving or living to their full potential. There's also instances where there's so much misinformation that is misleading to people, and it's making people do certain things that they shouldn't initially want to do. There's so many people are not even creating relationships. You find
because of what they consume on these digital platforms.
Yeah, because they're spending so much time on it. It's you can only, what do you call them? They have a name, like let's say on Twitter, they're called, you know, keyboard warriors, where they can create, they can talk.
Hold on that thought, Irari, the bashing, the keyboard warriors, the hashtags for hires. We'll talk about that in the last 10 minutes of the discussion. But as of now, I understand we need to cross over. The Kenya University Staff Union, KUSU, is giving a presser. This is in relation to corruption cases at universities. Let's cross over there and listen in to their statement.
In Masinde Muliro University, all the way from 2015. What has the government done? We reported about it. University of Embu, where human resource management is not anything to talk about. In the universities, you are going to be employed or promoted if you know who. And those are the citadels or the creme de la creme of academia. And anybody who stands up to say, no, this is wrong, then these staff are intimidated, they're threatened, they're dismissed, they're suspended. And now, this is what is coming out. And therefore, the government must take up a decisive action against this mismanagement and the plan of public resources. Governance in the universities must be investigated. The rule of law has been abused. Nobody wants to listen to that. Somebody says, after all, I'm a professor. So what is this? You are telling us, I know everything. You know everything? When your own driver is just stealing money. You're using junior staff to steal money from there. That cannot be a professor, in our view. So the government must step forward. And Professor Magoha must step forward. Let him not use innocent Kenyan workers in these institutions to claim that there is bloated staff, to claim that because universities do not have money and therefore staff must. No, begin with a big cow. You can have a PhD, but you're called a cow, a big cow. That is what we have reduced ourselves to. And therefore, I want to request my colleague to come in and share with us in Kiswahili.
Well, that is a tough-talking member of the Kenya University Staff Union, of course, addressing matters relating to corruption in universities. Our reporter Zipporah Soikau is there and will be bringing us up to speed with the latest in as far as that is concerned. But let's get back to this discussion, gentlemen. Ordinarily, we ask people to comment on what has gone on there, but because of time, I won't allow you. I'll ask you two, if not final questions. If this space then is having impact, as we agreed on, a negative impact on people's life, whose responsibility is it to make sure what is consumed or what is posted there then is of impact and a positive one to the people's lives?
Let me start by saying that actually the creators of these social media giants, especially Facebook, have come out to warn people against the use of such platforms. Why? Because if you look at what does well on Facebook, for example, the algorithms are made in such a way that outrage, things that make you angry, those are the posts that do well. So as a person on social media consuming the content, you end up reading through so much negativity. You go through so many negative things that even your moods change. So I think if anything is to change, it should start from the algorithms of the social media giants.
Irari, whose responsibility is it of what is consumed online?
I think we all have a responsibility. And like you said, the platforms themselves have a responsibility to ensure that whatever it is that is being pushed on their platforms is the right thing. And like you said, yeah, Facebook, that's why they always take down news down in the news feed. They want to create more, bring forth more content between friends, between families, because that makes people more happier. They feel like they're relating more. There's less negativity. people who broadcast, like let's say news people, like myself, himself, we all have a responsibility to make sure that we are making an impact. Where he just does not broadcast fake news and propel a lot of negativity online. So he's working towards making a difference. And even for the audience, they are getting more empowered. They need to be more responsible. So you find that if someone is out there and he's pushing a lot of negativity, he's pushing a lot of fake news, people are gonna tell him, no. This is not the right thing. You need to step up. You need to change. And you have seen people retract and say, no, I'm sorry, I pushed that. It was not meant to be pushed. Even find politicians trying to drive certain narratives. Oh, these people are going to win the election. The election has been won already. But the public is like, no. Stop propagating tribal politics in our country. And you'll find the person is going to take down the post, like what happened with the politician recently.
And lastly, the more social media, the more digital media has connected people. There are those who hold the notion that we are becoming less connected physically, that we are becoming more of heartless humans. Is that from people who have been in the industry, who know what's shared there? Is that the case?
It's largely the case because you will find even in a family, people have not seen each other for long. They meet, they greet. Then a few minutes later, everyone is on their mobile phones. They're trying to maybe consume what has been posted online. It's pretty much the case. People are not interacting the old way, where you talk to each other, you find out what has been happening to the other person. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because it's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing that I focus on my phone when you are here, for instance.
Once we've talked, we've caught up, and there's nothing really present that we should talk about, and you have more urgent things on your phone, makes sense for you to take a look.
Really, the same question, has this impact killed the human one-on-one interactions?
I actually totally disagree with him with regards to that, because even this whole essence of millennials is pretty much a phone thing, because you find, how do people make an impact, let's say in a company? They create an impact in a company, they feel welcome and they feel like they're doing something themselves when they sit down in boardrooms and their voice is heard, when they contribute, when they have relationships with the boss and the boss tells them, I like it, good stuff at the board meeting, and everyone feels empowered and they feel like they're doing something. But what has happened now? You go to boardroom meetings, everyone is on their phone. Your boss doesn't even have time to tell you that I like your project.
You are sharing the ideas on Twitter, use the hashtag boardroom meeting. That's where we'll have to end this discussion. Yes. Enoch Nyirika, who is the digital editor at TV47 Digital, many thanks for making time for us.
Thanks a lot.
Irari Ngugi, the country lead Opera News, many thanks equally for making time for us.
Welcome.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's edition of Newsroom. Thanks for watching. Bye for now, but enjoy the rest of your viewership here on TV47.